Welcome to the Global Tech Leaders Podcast, where we help business leaders and individual contributors with actionable insights to hit their number and figure out the nuances of truly operating a business globally today, squeezing the essence of the lessons learned from the planet's top tech leaders. This is your guide to joining the fast track to global market scaling.
So today we are joined by Pete Moore, managing partner at DA, Dream Architect, as he calls himself, at Halo. He spent 20 years in fitness wellness sector and coined the trademark term Halo, which stands for Health, Active Lifestyle, Outdoor, which has now become rather common in the finance world as an umbrella term, anything health and fitness related. He's been in the trenches. He knows what it's like to not make payroll and sweat and lose sleep at night. Unfamiliar to me, Pete. Don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, sure.
We'll get into it.
Podcasts go from 0 to 100, right?
Right. Oh, sure. Absolutely. So very excited to have him on the show today. He's published a new book called Time to Win Again. And he talks about it in terms of good to great meets Where's Waldo, or as in Europe, we call it Where's Wally. So keen to get into that. He says that pressure is a privilege, which I loved. So want to get into that too. Welcome to today's show, Pete.
Thanks, man. It's an honor to be here. I love what you're doing, and honored to be on your show.
Well, look, I have to say, you've been the style of guest I've been yearning to have on for quite some time. I'm a big fan of personal development. When I was 17, I read Tony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power. It changed my life, changed my whole attitude and mindset towards how you approach a problem set. So I'm keen to know what brought you into this space. Take us through your journey in terms of your education, your career, and how you've come to help other folks.
Yeah, sure. Well, it started off. I was a soccer goalie back in elementary school and high school for the sole purpose of not having to run around the field. I used to be able to go into my dad's change drawer and go to the ice cream man, and I used to put a lot of Big League Chew and Fun Dip under my radiator. And so I got a little chubby, and I'm like, all right, if I want to play sports, I might as well just hang out in the goal. And I got taller and I got better at it, and I became a pretty good goalkeeper. And what I learned as being the goalkeeper was I just got to make sure the team doesn't lose.
Right.
I'm not responsible for the team winning. And I think that philosophy of playing defense has always been a part of my life. And it's always been, I want somebody else to get the accolades. I just want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of the win. So in every sport I've played, I've always played defense, whether it's ice hockey, roller hockey, flag football. So I've always started out as, I'm going to be responsible. I'm going to be accountable, and I might be the last guy that they got to get through. So I kind of built that as kind of my mantra. And then I went to Emory University undergrad. I was the fraternity president, which has got a lot more liability as I look back on it now than it did when I was actually there.
Sure.
Dropping kids off in Alabama and, letting them bond to come back, 100 miles to Atlanta. Probably not the smartest thing with my, personal name on it. But, managing a group of 100 guys that are, some of them are older than you, some of them are younger than you.
Sure.
Managing a house and a budget, and events and a culture, I think that played a big role in networking, in listening to what people's problems were or some of their ideas and trying to infuse them into it. And then I went to a career fair in New York. Emory was not the school that it is today. So I used to get letters from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, saying that, we don't have a qualified position for you because they took all the analysts from the Ivy League schools. But I was able to get into Chase Manhattan Bank, which had a mergers and acquisitions group, which I didn't even know they had it when I went there. I went in there to be a credit analyst. And my father ran a food service equipment company. They made coffee machines and fryers and grills. So I kind of was brought up on business.
Yeah.
I used to spend time with him at the office, walking the factory floor. And when I went to Chase, I started to learn all the, financial tools that you need, which is, Excel and multiples and valuation. And I thought it was kind of easy to run a business because you could just put into Excel, 30% growth, we'll grow expenses at 5% growth. And, here's what the model looks like. And then I was able to get into DLJ, which was a big investment bank doing private equity coverage. And from there, I went out to Harvard Business School.
Yep.
First week I was at Harvard Business School, I called my dad and I say, I'm not sure if I belong here. I'm not sure if I can compete here. I think I'm going to pack up and go get my job back at DLJ. And he just said, just wait it out. And after a couple months, I felt comfortable there and that I could compete at that level. If you harken back to that time frame, it was 1998, 1999, the internet was going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough to have some money where I bought something called AOL Leaps, which are long-term equity appreciation securities. And that you could buy a leap on AOL when the stock was at $10. You could basically place a sucker bet that it would get to $80. And you basically have to put $1 down. While I was in business school, and it lasted for 2 years. So most options are 3, 6, 9 months.
Sure.
So I placed a couple of these bets and turned $30,000 into $1.4 million solely on trading stock options. Not that I was, I knew something more than anyone else. I was exposed to it and I took advantage of the opportunity, and I was enamored with the internet and helped start up this company called Iron Planet. But my passion and my knowledge was all in private equity. So I said, I got to go, from Harvard Business School, I'm going to go into private equity. It was really cold that winter up in Boston. So I found every private equity firm down in Florida, which at the time, Ross, there were only
That's
3.
one way to do it.
There were 3.
Okay.
And I had an option to move down to South Beach, which between you, me, Dave, and your small listener base, if you want to live at South Beach and 27 years old, probably not the best career decision, probably a very good social decision.
Sure.
But I decided not to take that risk of living in the middle of great adventure effectively. And I moved to Boca Raton and worked for a private equity group called Brockway, Moran and Partners.
Yep.
Peter Brockway and Mike Moran. And the day I got there, August 1st, 1999, they had a letter of intent to buy Gold's Gym International. Randomly, they owned an aerospace parts company, a brake business, a agricultural tank business. And I quickly surveyed the conference room table and I said, I'm definitely the only guy here that owns a tank top. And I'm definitely the only person that actually has a health club membership and played varsity sports. So I raised my hand. I said, hey, can I be on the Gold's Gym deal? Here's my background from an athletic and sports standpoint, and I have a membership. So I got drafted onto the Gold's deal as a senior associate. And that's kind of how I got into the fitness industry. Brockway ended up buying the franchisor with the largest franchisee in a transaction with the Galliani brothers. And I was doing the PowerPoints and the Excel, but I had this itch that the internet was going to change the world. And as I mentioned before, I made a fair amount of money just, trading options on internet companies.
Sure.
So I went to Peter Brockway. He was a very close friend of mine. And I said, hey, Peter, we should do a Gold's Gym internet group. And, private equity guys don't like to do venture capital deals. They're kind of 2 different universes all playing on the same chessboard. And he walked me to the front of the door and he said, the name of this firm is called Brockway, Moran and Partners. Your last name is not on the door. I'm not sure why you can't put an apostrophe S in goldsgym.com. Therefore, I am not going to invest in the internet. And I said, well, I think it's a good idea. So can I do it? And he said, what do you know about code and what do you know about technology? I said, very little. So he said, okay, you got 90 days. If you find a technology company that has the wherewithal to pull this off, I'll give you, Pete Moore, a 3-year contract to run goldsgym.com. So I left private equity. Well, first what I did was I ran around the country trying to find a technology company. And I found a group down in Phoenix, Arizona that had written all the code for one of the largest nutrition companies. And they were in the process of webifying it. So I basically said, hey, I can bring you the largest health club chain. They gave me a business plan, a guy named Don Hoskins. He wanted to private label all his software for health clubs.
Oh, yeah.
And April 1st of 2000, 3 weeks before the internet got crushed, I moved out to Arizona. I rented a Pontiac Grand Am. I lived in Amerisuites. And every 2 weeks, I would go and sell some of those AOL leaps to cover payroll.
Sure.
So that lasts about 60 weeks. 60 pay cycles. You could do that by selling down all your stock. And one of the lessons I learned when you're an entrepreneur like you are, the business is you.
Yeah, sure.
And the servers, there was no Amazon Web Services. Okay. I had a guy named Thomas that used to have to go and reset the servers when the Gold's Gym site went down. I think he had a slight alcohol problem, but he made it back and forth. And what I learned was, I can't let this company fail. This has my name on it. I've got 1,500 health clubs that are using our software. And what happened over time, I know it's a little bit prolonged, but what happened over time is I would go out and I'd sell a health club chain on the software, and they were all on 28.8 modems. Oh, wow. And trying to upload a digital picture of their health club up to the internet would take a couple hours because they didn't want to pay for a DSL line.
Sure.
So, Ross, if I was in your living room in Lexington, Kentucky, and you have 4 hours with Pete Moore, who worked in private equity, went to Harvard Business School, worked in banking, you start fire shotting every financial question you have on the universe at me. So I was basically an internet guy. I was a banker running around in internet clothing, educating all these guys on EBITDA, unit economics, KPIs, stock option plans, bank debt. And that's basically where all these relationships that we have now with Integrity Square were all fostered in someone's living room 20 years ago when I was trying to get them to use the internet. So after 3 years, that company always did less than 100,000 of revenue and always at least $100,000 of expenses a month.
Wow. Yeah.
And, but as of right now, if you look back, we were a SaaS company before the term SaaS was invented.
Sure.
We had a recurring revenue stream from 1,500 health clubs around the country. And we were the only place you could really go if you wanted to build a platform that was similar to some of the bigger players like LA Fitness or Bally's. And then to tell you a little bit of a personal story, when I couldn't meet payroll anymore, you would still get a lot of pre-approved credit cards, which might be one of the best financing tools for an entrepreneur. I'm not encouraging people to do that, but it is financing of last resort, and you don't have to ask anybody permission. You just get the application. So I went to a Kmart November of 2003 to buy a buddy of mine a birthday present of a work belt. And I literally sat at the counter with the credit cards and I just dropped them all on the counter, and I left Kmart without a work belt. So I was an entrepreneur that was busted because I spent all my personal credit trying to keep the servers on. Because if the servers went down, that's Pete Moore that went down. So I learned what it feels like to write a personal check. I learned what it feels like to walk out of Kmart without a work belt. And when you advise entrepreneurs with that kind of knowledge and background and not giving them a financial model that says, oh, just grow this by 30%, you understand there's a sales cycle. You understand there's onboarding. You understand that there's conflicts inside of a company. There's bank debt. There's people that want to get a raise, but there's no money to give them a raise. They deserve it, but they're not getting one. So all these lessons for 3 years was basically an incubator for me to become a really good advisor because I lived it. Right. And when you live it, and I'm sure you've been in the same place and probably a lot of your listeners, if you tell somebody, oh yeah, just move $30,000 from my personal account into my business account, you know what that feels like. I know what that feels like. It hits you physically in your gut. You know how that feels. So when I go to entrepreneurs now and I say, hey, look, I understand what you're going through. I'm like you, but now I'm helping you. So what I did after leaving the software company, I left it with my partner in Arizona. He kept running it, downsized it. And then I went back to banking. And when I went back to banking, that's when all the private equity groups started to invest in the health club industry, basically back in 2004. So I kind of became the guy. We were on Park Avenue, but we'll use Wall Street. I was the guy on Wall Street that you would go to and say, hey, is this guy financeable? Or is this family somebody I can put money behind? Can I bring them to a limited partner meeting? And in the health club industry, there's a lot of ways to move money around. There's something called tenant improvement dollars. and you basically build your health club, and then you give all the invoices to the landlord, and the landlord gives you the money back for that.
Right. Finance it. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are guys that used to make up fake invoices and get a lot more money from the landlord. I know who those guys are. So when a private equity group comes and says, hey, what do you think about this deal? I say, run as quickly as you can.
Bullshit
Thank
invoices.
me later and buy me a sushi or something.
Right.
And then there were guys that, had really nice platforms in territories that you would not be able to find in a database. There's a guy that has an awesome business in Phoenix, Arizona. He doesn't show up on a DMB, news run. It's just kind of, the internet wasn't what it is today. So I was able to do the financing or introduction for Equinox. We did the Massage Envy transaction, which is one of the largest, workout recovery and massage franchises in the U.S. We did Urban Active, which was the largest multi-unit health club chain in the Mid-Atlantic. Worked with New York sports clubs. So we kind of created this really nice practice. At the time, we called it the health and wellness practice inside of a firm called Sagent, which was partners that I used to work for before I went to business school. And they basically let me back into finance after I became a crazy entrepreneur without any credit card debt balance remaining.
Right.
So I became the co-head of private equity coverage for a little while, and then set up this active lifestyle and wellness group. And we did about 30 deals. And then in 2010, the group that I was working for, the advisory firm, came back and said to me, you can only do deals over 100 million. We're not touching anything over 100 million under in enterprise value, because we need like $1 million or $1.5 million of fee income in order to support this, branded investment bank. And I'm looking at my Rolodex. Hopefully most of your listeners still know what a Rolodex is.
Sure.
Looking at my Rolodex, and I'm like, I don't have anybody that's worth $100 million right now, but I'm the only guy in finance that all these guys know. Right. So I'm not doing that. So I used to live in Union Square. So, and I love the word integrity. So we created Integrity Square. We used to say, I'll meet you in the square. It's kind of evolved into, if you're a client of Integrity Square, you're protected by the square. I know you'll like that. It's kind of old school, right?
Yeah.
And we'd say, we'll meet in the square. So if you have integrity, you're allowed in the square. Once you're in the square, you're protected by the square. And there was I look up a lot of words that I don't know where they came from. And I think it's important for people to do that. I looked up the word client, and it turns out that the Latin derivation of the word client is someone under your protection. Just take a second and think about that.
Interesting.
So if I take on a client, that means I'm responsible for them. A lot of people look at their clients like, oh, this client's a pain in the ass. This client asks too many things. I wish I didn't have this client. Well, hold on a second. You started the company. First of all, they didn't start the company.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You started the company. You sold them something. And like on one of your podcasts that I was listening to, it's a brand promise.
Oh, yeah.
And if you don't have a brand, it's a personal promise. I'm going to do this for you. So I give everyone my cell phone. I give everyone my email address. I don't care who you are. I have to be accessible because that's the promise I've made.
Do the same. Yep.
Yeah. So, so we started Integrity Square. Our first deal was a suntan chain, suntan bedding chain. And we launched that process. And then 3 weeks later, the US government came out with a suntan tax. So that was not the first bellwether deal for Integrity Square. Then we worked with a chain out in the Midwest that we sold to LA Fitness, which took a whopping 18 months to sell that business to the 800-pound gorilla in the space. And then over time, we've probably done about a third of the health and fitness transactions in the industry. And then again, harkening back to looking up the word, I'm like, nobody comes to me with an awesome wellness idea. It kind of drops like a dead mic. You want to say it? Test it out on me. You got an awesome wellness idea?
I've had a few folks come to me and talk to me about them around applications and corporate responsibility and checking in with doing your exercises, but nothing that's blown me away.
Nothing that's blown you away. Part of it might be the word wellness. So it turns out that the word wellness was invented by a guy named Dr. Halbert Dunn at the Mayo Clinic back in the 1920s. He was a biostatistician. He was looking at all the data. He's like, all right, I got to come up with the opposite of illness. So he comes up with the word wellness. So if you're not sick, that means you're just okay. And aspirational guys like us, as you can tell from this call,
Sure.
we're not playing it. We're not looking for mediocrity here. Like, we want to be awesome.
Sure.
So I said, we got to get rid of this word wellness. So we actually did a retirement party for the word wellness. And we came up with this acronym, as you mentioned before, health, active lifestyle, outdoors, which is, basically encompasses everything you need to live a healthy lifestyle. And we trademarked the use of the word Halo for Halo Talks, for Halo Academy. And we're trying to get everyone to use it as the acronym for the entire sector. Because what's happened in the US, which I'm sure has happened over in Europe and Ireland and UK, people start to segment off a consumer that's already identified with the entire lifestyle. So somebody comes and says, "Oh, I got a better for you food and beverage company. I've got a workout recovery business. I've got a health club chain, a boot camp chain." They're all targeting the same consumer with different products and services. So what we're trying to do is coin the term and say, like, okay, Ross, you're obviously a guy that lives a Halo lifestyle.
Sure.
So instead of us being a investment bank or like the voice of the health club industry, I want to be the voice of everyone that wants to not be obese, not be lonely, and not get diabetes. Are you in? Right. And then when some restaurant comes out and says, okay, we're going to make the booths bigger to accommodate larger people, I call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
Right. Or you want to make the seats bigger, or you want to give people bigger seatbelt, extensions or what have you. That's completely unacceptable to me. And I feel like in this PC world that we're living in right now, obviously there are people that got thyroid conditions, there are people that have genetics and so on and so forth. But the fact that this COVID thing hit everyone so hard, and they used to have it on the CDC site in the US, which would tell you what the underlying conditions were, and they took it down because they were so embarrassed about obesity and hypertension, which can all be fixed if you just go work out for 8 weeks and then go walk around the block for 60 minutes a day. So what we're trying to do in a nutshell is, I've got this background in private equity, so I can talk, EBITDA with all these private equity people that I went to business school with or undergrad. And I've got all these health club guys. I've been in their living room, trying to get them up on a 28 modem. And I'm trying to connect all those people and make sure that the people that have great ideas to advance the Halo sector get money, because we're living in a world that's based on capitalism, and it's a 10-letter word, 7 letters of capital. You better have capital. And if you don't have capital, you're going to be left behind. So I want to make sure that we connect the right finance groups with the right entrepreneurs, with the right ideas. And if we can triangulate that, then everybody wins. And then the diabetes, the loneliness, and the obesity, there's groups out there, that's what they're doing. You and I talking about it on a podcast is awesome. And I'm glad that we met. We're going to be fast friends. But it's all these micro communities is where everything happens.
Okay, so there's a lot there and I want to get into it. So let's do this. Where do you see you gain credibility? Because I'm sensing that you're a very relatable guy. You've got that kind of buy-in from the get-go with folks because you've been there, right? You've been through the hard knocks, the school of hard knocks. You've got your frat house piece, and then you've moved into the responsibility piece. So people are like, I get this guy, he gets me. We're kindred spirits. So I can see the rapport building right off the bat when you go into a room and you meet somebody. And I think that's what kicks off that conversation. But like, what's your why, Pete? Like, and take me through what's a red flag for you. So when you're sat across the room from a guy, there's business, there's EBITDA, there's cold hard numbers in the cold light of day. I get all of that. You have to walk away from that. But what is it you're looking for below the surface when you meet somebody, when you're looking at, what's your why, and what are you looking for with their why, and what's a red flag and a deal breaker for you when you meet somebody who's investable or not?
It's a great question. The reason why I'm doing this is because I care. And I feel like I'm uniquely positioned because I was lucky being born where I was and be able to go to schools that I went to, that there aren't that many people that have this nexus between finance and Halo and fitness. It just didn't really exist. There's literally like four people like myself in the banking industry that are connecting most of these deals. So my why is that I love sports and fitness. and I can wear what I'm wearing right now, which is a badass Adidas sweatsuit, you know, basically to a meeting. So I want to be able to live my life the way I want to live it. And the way I live it is as if I'm still, you know, a goalie in sports. So to me, I found a perfect place where I felt comfortable. The people that are working with me don't view me as, oh, it's New York bankers coming in, like, you know, let's make sure like our pockets are closed, you know, or these guys are going to try and, you know, put something over on me or so, you know, so one, you know, I care. They know I do. They trust me. I'm honest. And I want to help them grow, because if they grow as an individual, they grow as a company. That's the most that you could ever do for someone, is help them build a business. If you think there's this one chain, and this guy, Royce Pulling, is one of my best friends. He ran this health club chain, you know, and at one point they had 36 clubs. They had 200,000 members in these 36 clubs. They had 1,500 people working for them. They had family members working for them. They had religious communities that were somehow, you know, affiliated with the business. And that only happened because we were able to get them $22 million for someone to partner with them to go and build those clubs. Right? It wouldn't have happened. Right. So that transaction was a game-changing transaction, not just for the entrepreneur, not for the investor and the C-suite guys, but it changed communities. Like that to me, like, I love that. So when someone's like, hey, what do you do? My mom used to joke around and say like, oh, my son's a health club broker. You know, is that a full-time job? I'm like, just wait. We'll see what happens. Well, look, you know, when someone's like, hey, what's your accomplishment? I'd say, look, there's probably, I don't know, at least 4,000 physical locations that have been built because myself and my team have convinced someone to invest money in an entrepreneur that was going to pursue that. So the one thing I look for now, going back to your original question, is I look for people that are realistic about what their goals are and that they've nailed the prototype. And anyone who's listening here who wants to go and build 1,000 club chain or a franchise, just put that in like a drawer where you can't reach it. Okay. And focus on the one location that you currently have and tell me how it works.
It's MVP, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like every company has a special sauce. And it takes time to find out how to make that special sauce.
Of course.
You know, like you work in an Italian restaurant, like it's not like, hey, let's throw this together and like, bam, we got the special recipe. No, it's been passed down for generations, right? It's years of like experimentation, you know, to get that dish to be what it is. Like that's the house dish, or that's the house sauce. So I think a lot of people, and I've been a part of companies where we've grown too fast and we forgot that this is all about the unit economics. Or this is all about the brand promise. Or if it's Soul Cycle, it's all about the instructor. If it's Planet Fitness, it's all about the business model. If it's a software company, it's all about the ease of use and the scalability. So a lot of people say, oh, I got this one club, I got 9 other clubs. I'm like, well, which one's the prototype? Is there a prototype? No, the 11th one's going to be the prototype. Well, dude, I can't get you money. You're on your 11th experiment, bro.
Yeah.
You know, so there've been mistakes. You know, we use this term, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. That's one I would polish into everything you do, because we've all got these lessons that we've learned. And Peter Brockway, who's, you know, one of my mentors and a good friend of Brockway Moran, you know, he said, look, every company is like a movie. And if I'm investing in a company, I got to find out what the movie, what scene I'm at.
Right.
Where the movie is with this company. And then I got to know how to get into it and what I want the movie how I want it to play out. So focus on the unit economics. You know, the guys at Orange Theory, have you done Orange Theory?
I have not.
The Orange Theory is, you know, one of the largest boot camp concepts in the US, got about 1,500 locations worldwide, maybe even 2,000. The guy that ran that business and partnered with the founder, Ellen, his name's Dave Long and Terry Blachik and Jerome. I used to go down there. They were part of Massage Envy's franchising group. And then they went down to Florida and they partnered up with this woman, Ellen, who did the Ellen's Ultimate Workout, it was called. And they changed it to Orange Theory about 10 years ago. And I'd go down and see Dave Long, and he would meet me at, like a Chipotle or something. And I felt like he was moving at like a snail's pace. And he's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Maybe I'm going to raise some money here. How many locations you have? We got like 20 right now. And I'm like, wow, you could do something really big. And then I realized that he didn't figure out the special sauce yet. And he was slow playing himself in order to wait to figure out, I need the technology. I need the brand. I can't make this about the instructor, because then the instructor basically runs the studio. I got to make the instructors captains. Like they're like a group exercise, a team leader, right? Whereas if I go to a Soul Cycle, I'm going to an artist. You been to Soul Cycle?
I know what you're talking about. I know where you're going with this. Yeah.
So the business model of Soul Cycle, they're in the talent management business. They're basically running like 100 Madison Square Garden micro arenas, and they got the best, athletes and performers coming in and doing a spin class for, I was more than happy to pay $35 for it, because it was like me going to a P. Diddy concert. I've never been to a P. Diddy concert. I've been to CNC Music Factory.
I remember them. I
you.
know the name for our
All right, there you
listeners.
go. We're not going to do any rap on here, are we?
Not from me. You're not going to get that.
I went to a Public Enemy concert once with,
Nice.
They opened up for U2, which was a bizarre combo.
I've heard of them. They're kind of big in Ireland.
They're big in your area.
Yeah.
They're big in your area. So look, I mean, you got so every Soul Cycle instructor thinks that they're Bono or the next Bono or going to be bigger than Bono.
Yep.
So if you're going to go and employ those people, you better know how to manage them.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're running Orange Theory, I'm not going to find 1,500 Bonos. Right. So I can't make it about the instructor. I got to make it about the program. I got to make it about the technology. Right.
Couldn't agree more.
So a lot of people just run with a business and don't understand like all the different levers. Like you're a puppeteer. Like what matters here? If you're Planet Fitness, they don't have personal training. Somebody might come in and say, oh, these guys could make so much more money if they had personal trainers on the floor. They make 50%. Yeah, bro, they take up half of the space. Yeah. They steal half of your members, right? And all I have is 20,000 square feet.
Yep.
So would I rather have 20 personal trainers skimming off me, or would I rather have another 60 or 80 or 100 members that I could fit into this place? So it's all about the business model.
I couldn't agree more. So you've hit on a critical point there that I want to address, which is harping back to what you said at the beginning around the business is you. It's about the brand and the personal commitment you make to back that brand up in the early days, fledgling days. So when you're delivering and you're the puppet master, and what I'm trying to do as a business owner in the talent space myself is to delegate out to the folks that work for my team, right? So I'm trying to figure out at what point does Ross give up the day-to-day operations, which I've done a good amount of, to be fair, and we scale pretty well as a result of this, versus how do I have my talent, my onboarding process and my training kick in because I believe I'm world-class and I'm scalable. Now, I've had the good fortune to work at companies like Dell and places like HubSpot where they have this critical mass component figured out. So my question is, for you, what does that look like? You talked about secret sauce being an inflection point. You talked about having the systems, that first location being the kind of the model for the rest of the locations. What does that handover look like in your world, Pete, from the owner operator to the scale and the franchise piece? Because the training's that damn good. You hire an okay guy, because I'm about talent acquisition. We hire folks on a daily basis. I want to find someone who's got the experience and got the fit and the mindset. They're smart enough to do the job, but they're not an owner operator. What does that transition look like?
I mean, it's somewhat of a loaded question, but I feel as if a lot of, everyone tries to say, okay, we're just going to kind of plug this culture into a business. And, I really think that the best companies either put people and move them around. They used to do this in like consulting firms and banks, even in law firms, they do this. But, in the fitness industry, you try and take some of your best general managers and your assistant general managers and kind of have them always, daisy chaining themselves. Sure. Or like, and there's growth. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my best general manager. I'm going to take my best assistant general manager. I'm going to team them up for a period of time. And this is going back to the Urban Active. They basically used to take their best people out of Lexington, and then they moved their best people to Nashville. And these people were so loyal that they would go 2 years, and they'd open up 6 clubs in Nashville. Then they go open up 6 clubs in Cincinnati. Then they would go to Dayton. Then they would go to Toledo. I'm going to give you all a map of Ohio here. You want me to provide you a map for the podcast? I'm just kidding. Then they go up to Cleveland, right? So they had these rock star people that started at the beginning, knew how to run the playbook, had the culture and the drive, and everyone had a uniform. And I think every company should have a uniform, by the way. There's no reason why every company shouldn't have a uniform. Even, like whether it's shirts or whether it's vests or what have you, harkening back to like the book and thinking about like team sports. What did you play back in the day, or what do you play now?
Rugby.
Okay. So you could probably sit down and say, let's go back. I want to get my, how many guys you got? 11 or 12, 14? What's the squad there?
We're 8 folks.
8. Okay. So if you took your 8 guys from high school and you said, what are the 50 best things that we learned from rugby, and infuse them in your business, you'd crush it, because like you had this trust, you had a relationship. You weren't we just want to win, right? It didn't matter who ran the ball over the line, right? Who cares, right?
I get it.
So, you get these people that, they get these personal incentives, right? But they forgot that we're playing on a team here. Like if the team doesn't win, then what's your personal incentive worth to me as a business owner? And that's the whole idea of giving out stock options to people.
Yeah, sure.
And rewarding people on like, profitability at the club level or studio level. But you got to spend a lot of time and energy. I'm jumping around here a bit, but a buddy of mine, and he was on our Halo Academy, this guy Mirza Baig. He's a venture capitalist, got a group called Aldrich Capital Partners. He spoke at one of our events, and he says, guys, I spend 50% of my time recruiting for my portfolio companies. Yep. He's a guy who you think like, okay, what do you do all day? Oh, he probably just talk to a lot of people, get some really good ideas, pick one out of the best 200, a month to diligence. He's like, no, man, I'm looking for the best people, because people make my portfolio companies awesome.
Yeah, sure.
The portfolio company does not make itself awesome.
Yeah, no, that's all we do. We work for VCs and PE all day long. We hire the best people because that's where the market's at. And it's hard to get good people. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, right now in the market, we've surveyed across the board, there's a 41% overhang in certain roles that we have of advertised positions versus relatively qualified folks who are even in the addressable market set without niching down or niching down. So it's crazy out there right now.
Yeah. Look, I mean, if you go, you look at an unemployment rate, and then you go on, all the job sites, and you're like, okay, there's obviously somebody's not matching these people up.
And they fake those numbers too.
Yeah. Well, people don't exist because they haven't been trained, right? Yeah, and they're not able to go into the workforce and do what they need to do.
Yeah. And after 6 months, you become a discouraged workers, and they take you off the stats and don't count you anymore.
But if they were on your rugby team, they would be loyal. And they won't, I'm not leaving this rugby team. I'd be like, shuttered from like society if I walked out of this rugby team. So I think people need to think about their business more like sports teams, and how do these athletes get treated? What does the locker room look like? What's the locker room look like in the for Manchester United versus an
unheard of
the advertising company that's got 100 people? Just take pictures of it and replicate it. These are your professional athletes. And thankfully, you don't have to pay them $25 million a year or transfer them for $50 million, which you got to educate me on, because I have no idea where all this money comes from and all these soccer transfer fees. However,
that's another.
Give these guys what the professionals have. You got a Hyper Ice or a Therabody gun. Those things, those little Black & Decker type of tools, vibration sticker. Put those in your employee cafe. Go open up a gym and go do an exact replica of what Manchester United does for their players. Obviously, at a smaller scale and not the most expensive stuff, but like show your employees that like you care about them, and that's a tell. There's a lot of tells. You probably do that all the time with telling people, look, if you do these little things, they mean way more than you think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tell me this: why is pressure a privilege, Pete?
I used to get so upset. I used to get really down on myself when I failed.
Okay.
And when I took on a hard deal and the deal didn't close, we just didn't, things happen that are Some of them are uncontrollable. Some of them are controllable. But, as I think about pressure, if you're not doing something important and you might fail, it's probably not that important, right? Because you and I can go walk across a bridge. All right, that's fun. Let's go walk across a bridge that's, got a couple of the planks out and that's not really well supported. Like that's being an entrepreneur, right? You have no idea what's on the other side of that bridge. One, the bridge is not sturdy. Two, when you get to the other side, you have no idea if that's good or not, right?
Squid Game Bridge, for anyone who's seen the show, it's the penultimate episode. So there's an analogy for you.
Yeah. So look, I think you got to go in and part of the book, we'll send you a copy of the book.
Awesome.
I'm not here to pump the book. I'm here to become friends with you. So I hope we've accomplished that by now.
No doubt.
Down doubt. But when you think about what you want to do, like when you get to the other side and you get success, you've earned it. You've put in the blood, sweat, and tears because it doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah, I hear you.
And when you get there, enjoy the win. And also know that like every guy who goes and bats up at the World Series, he's going back to the dugout at least 7 out of 10 times. And he's sitting on his ass and he's thinking about how he didn't hit that ball, a little bit further. So if you bat 300, right? And we got 7 portfolio companies that we've invested in. And for this audience here and all my investors that are listening, I thought I was going to go 7 for 7, right? Because after 40, Pete Moore doesn't make any mistakes, right? Doesn't. How can I make a mistake? I've seen this movie before.
I've seen that. I've said that to myself. Yeah. I just hit 40. I hear you.
All right. So I'm going to go 3 for 7 is where I'm going to go. So that's better than, maybe I'd be in the Hall of Fame if I was a batter.
So.
Or not. I don't know.
So
those are the analogies I think you got to think about.
No,
I'd be like, dude, just deal with it. Deal with pressure. It's a privilege. Like you're doing something important. People are trusting you with your decisions.
But failure is great. It absolutely is great. And one of the things I love about the US is that if you go into a deal and they look at you, even in finance, they'll look at you and go, how many times you failed? And that's celebrated. Now, there are certain places where in other countries where that's not the case. They're like, if you fail, I'm not going to touch you. Yeah, and I think it's quite the
Japanese
opposite.
Culture, right?
Yeah, it's not the right approach, in my opinion, because you've learned how not to do it. Talk to my wife. She'll tell you the mistakes I've made. And now it's about, well, great, I know what not to do. And the most successful entrepreneurs will celebrate those mistakes. Yeah. It's like a badge of honor because they know what to do.
You hope that everybody learns from it, and you hope that it almost I think our brain is basically like just a sophisticated Dropbox, right? You finding files and finding information.
Yeah, and sorting through.
The most interesting part about failure is that it there's like a hormonal endorphin. Something happens when you fail and it kind of sits in the back of the Dropbox. And when you see like a flashing light that's like, dude, that looked like failure. That looks like failure. And I'm going to tell the other person, I'm going to tell the entrepreneur, I'm going to tell my business partner, like, dude, I've been on this one. I'm going to show you the file. I'm going to take it out of my Dropbox and I'm going to tell you about it. And something in your brain triggers it, but also like physically, you're like, dude, I don't want to go back there. Right. So pressure is a privilege. So just get out there and win, and if you're going to lose, I'm going to say something right now. It might be a little controversial, but everything about mental health, and I get it. And, we're sensitive humans and, we're animals, but you better learn how to fail. And you better learn that you don't have to take 6 months off or a year off to like recuperate from a loss.
I agree with you.
Just deal with it. You're going to lose every single day at something, right? I might cross the street. I might not make it across the street, right? Yeah. I might have to stop at the red light. Okay. I lost that walk, right? Or I lost that deal. So you're going to, all right, I got to the pizza place late. There's no pizza left. I could have gone earlier. I wasn't disciplined enough. Just deal with the failure, deal with the pressure, set your guardrails around what you do and, suck it up. So yeah, it's a mental health issue. If you aren't given the tools or don't have the ability to deal with it, Dave and I had a conversation a couple hours ago. I'm dealing with something right now that I'm trying to figure out how to play it. So yeah, just like it's part of the journey. There's no way around it.
Look, I believe like our society is built on protecting people from these sorts of things. And look, there are real things out there. There are real people with real mental health issues, and I'm not here to belittle that in any way, shape, or form. But what I am here to say is, as a parent of 3 children as well, I'm not going to protect my kids from failure. I'm not going to say I'm going to nurture you and cotton wool around you to say that you should never do this. If you get hit in the playground, hit back. But if it's mental abuse, take it and move on and be stronger as a result of that, and celebrate it and tell people the story later, because that's what the world is. Rocky Balboa speech and all that sort of stuff. That's the reality of where we are as a society, and it's meant to be tough.
So after you and I conquer the halo sector, obesity, diabetes, and loneliness, here's what I think we should do. I want to put a prohibition on little league games and kids intramurals where they don't keep score. I'm banning
and you get a medal for 10th place, right?
A global ban on not keeping score, because we can't deal with this kid going home at the age of 7 and crying. Well, you know what? When he's 17 or he's 27 or he's 37, you better learn it now when he's 7, not when he's 37. Because then he's got a mental health issue.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Never had a loss before.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And that's the essence of capitalism, is about reinventing yourself, finding out what works and tweaking it and moving on and serving what's there to be served in the marketplace. So look, you don't need to tell me I'm a bit controversial from that perspective too. And, our opinions may not be welcomed by all, but you know what? That's fine. It's the world we live in.
Maybe we'll have like a little disclaimer at the front of this podcast. It says
it's not for everyone.
What are they doing in the US? Like this infomercial is not,
opinions expressed
by the
are
channel
not shared.
That's making money off of it or something. Like, well, you took their money, so I guess you're okay with it. But
I hear you. Okay, well, look, as we round the corner here, and I appreciate you've been very generous with your time, Pete.
Likewise.
Let's shift gears here for a moment. As a guy who's running around, you're in New York City at the moment. That's a busy, bustling place. One of my favorite places in the world, as everyone knows. How do you stay organized and stay on top of your day? As a final parting question, what does organization skills look like? You maybe you've invested in a gizmo or a gadget that was like few hundred bucks that is a go-to, maybe it's your journal. Tell us how Pete stays organized.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that are really good at being organized should do classes on it, because I think a lot of people don't understand. When I look at somebody's email box and they have like 22,000 emails in their inbox, I'm like, dude, what, do you even know what's going on in the world in your life?
Sure.
It's like you're like disheveled just by looking at your email. I can tell you're disheveled. Yeah. So what I do, and this pisses some people off, is I take my my Apple or my Google Calendar, and my Google Calendar has every single thing that I'm doing today.
Me too.
And what I do is afterwards, so this is like my Google Calendar, right? This is everything I got to do today. These aren't all conference calls, but I color code it. Mm-hmm. So that's like my creative outlet, not color code my calendar.
Yep.
So I don't have to get crayons, I guess. I love crayons though. Point is, and then what I do is after this podcast, and it was a great talking to you, I'm going to delete that from my calendar, because I'm not looking back on when I had this meeting. Yep. I just know that we're here. We played the game. Now I'm going on to the next game. So my calendar and my to-do list is in one. And unfortunately, Google and Microsoft, these other ones, they send a decline that I declined the meeting after it happened. And I got some high maintenance friends that get offended by that, they're thinking that it was like, because I didn't have a good time. I'm like, no, dude, I'm going to go make another follow-up of when we're going to go next. So I think being organized there. And then the second thing I do, I live in California now. So I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning. So I'm on 8 o'clock time in New York. And if you can get up 2 or 3 hours before everyone else in your area on average, you feel like you're like 3 or 4 laps around the track and they have to catch up to you. And there's something psychologically
it's a good call.
Pleasing about that. And living in California, I'm up at 5 o'clock in the morning. The place is pitch black. I'm best friends with the barista at the Starbucks because I'm the only guy in there at 5:05.
Amazing.
And then by noon, it's 3 o'clock New York time. Like I crushed the day.
Sure.
Because of the time zone I'm in.
I think that's an awesome tip. 5 a.m. Club is a book I read that speaks to that. And I think that's an immense takeaway for the call. I really want to thank you for all you've added to the value of our listenership today. It's been awesome. And I have to say, I'd be honored to welcome you back again on another show, Pete.
Yeah, man. Well, let's get together in person first.
Yeah,
let's go do a Soul Cycle class at Orange Theory and maybe hit a pub. And then kind of take this Halo relationship and talent management from there.
Sounds fantastic. I look forward to it,
baby.
Let's do it. Cheers, Pete. Appreciate it.
All right, man. That was awesome. Good to see you. Thanks for the invite.
You've been listening to the Global Tech Leaders Podcast, designed for both established and aspiring career-focused tech rock stars, as well as helping leadership figure out how to speak global in today's multicultural world. For further details, check out sf-talent.com.